give a big thanks to you all for the past couple of months. I know it's been tumultuous, but I know each and every one of y'all have been, and your departments have been working extremely hard. And so more than anything, I want to let you know that I appreciate it. But I know we got a long agenda, so let's go ahead and get started. So Mr. Matthew Horton, the floor is yours.
All right, is it on? It sounds like it. All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. As you said, it's been a year. IT got through the whole storm relatively unscathed. Our losses were limited to the park, basically. Had some equipment there that basically didn't make it. But the good news is, since we switched to our cloud-based security camera system over there, I believe most of the cameras themselves were high up enough to get by with no damage. So the losses were related to accessory equipment. But we won't really know what the extent of it is until further repairs are made and the power situation gets straightened out. I'm sure Josh will speak to it with more information since he's heading that up. But that's one of the kind of unknowns as far as next year's budget is concerned. I really don't know what that cost is going to be to get that equipment back up and running. It just depends on what was lost and what still works. Other than that, IT's current year budget has proceeded pretty much as planned. I'm super happy with the current state of IT. We implemented new security software across the board, a new backup system that you guys approved in the last budget cycle. That's all in, it's all functional. Things are working great. We completed the proof of concept testing for some upgrades to the MACE accounting system to allow it to work with the Windows 11 operating system that's going to be going on our new computers that are coming in later this year. So really all that's left for this year is we have to place that computer hardware order, which is going to be coming up pretty soon. And again, it's going to replace a chunk of the computers at Town Hall, and the intention is to replace the remainder of them in the upcoming budget year. So that will be our major capital expense in the upcoming year. Other than that and the park stuff, IT is not planning to request really anything else in the upcoming budget year. We're pretty much good on everything. The one kind of sticking point that kind of came out of left field last week was something that Mark brought to my attention. Apparently there's a new general statute that was passed that applies to the town called the Coates Canons NC Local Government Law, and it specifically relates to preventing the viewing of pornography on town provided equipment. And he sent me a summary of what we got to work with here, and it's a pretty broad and all-encompassing requirement. And the way our system works currently is that we block it on the firewall here in the building, but we do not monitor or have any type of reporting related to that. And this statute has an actual reporting requirement where we have to submit reports to the state CIO on an annual basis. So since the current system has no reporting capability, that means we're going to have to replace it with something that does in order to meet the requirements. They're also asking that the scope of this monitoring and reporting extend to all town equipment, so that includes outside the building as well. So that would be all cell phones, police MDTs, things like that. And they also extend it to what we call BYOD, or bring your own devices. So that would be personal devices like personal phones, personal tablets that are brought within the building as well. So in order to comply with that, did a little research, and it's looking like we're going to have to implement a couple of cloud-based recurring services, a DNS filter, and a more robust managed device solution. I don't think is going to be a gigantic expense, but it is something that we weren't expecting. So that'll be going into the next year's budget as well, so that we can fulfill that requirement. Interestingly enough, they don't specify how the reporting is supposed to happen. I don't think they've gotten that far yet. So we don't know what format those reports are going to take, or what specifically they're going to require. But that's about it from my side. So if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Well, Mark, does the town need to write a policy for that?
We have a policy, or a communications policy already in place that restricts, viewing of that. And there are some exceptions for, obviously, if the police have an active investigation. But no, we have a communications policy, and all employees are required to sign that when they come on board.
Okay.
When Heather goes through personnel policy with them, then it's included. There's some mention of it in there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark provided me a copy of the policy, and as far as policies go, it looks pretty solid. It's typical of what you would see in a normal business context, so it definitely looked fine to me.
And that is one of the requirements of the legislation, that you have,
All right.
develop a policy, and there's some disciplinary and so forth, so.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Matthew? Well, sounds good.
All right,
Thank you. We appreciate it.
no problem.
Thanks, Matthew.
All righty, moving on to admin. Heather Taylor, floor is yours.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. And I think I have the three boringest departments to oversee compared to all these guys right here. So the administration department budget is mostly human capital, salaries, and benefits, a few other line items. Nothing big this past year, nothing really different for going into next year requesting wise. Professional services budget is kind of what it says. It's our professional services, so it's our auditor fees, our engineering fees, our legal fees, our economic incentives, and any type of other type of contractual agreements we might have out there. And this year, there really wasn't anything out of the ordinary, except for we did pass that budget amendment last month, I believe, for the additional engineering fees due to Hurricane Helene. So that was a kind of a change. The town facilities budget, it kind of includes our utilities on buildings, postage for various things. It's kind of like a catch-all department, has our wellness stuff for our employees. Nothing major. I think it was flat budget coming into this year, and I don't foresee any major changes going into next year. But since I'm here, I just want to say thank you to our guys with the whole Hurricane Helene response, that we have managed to submit 2 FEMA projects into the portal. And this did require Josh and Jabo doing lots of work in Excel spreadsheets. And that helped me tremendously. They were going in tracking equipment hours, vehicles, labor, and that's some funds we were able to recoup back. So they did a really great job, and I say thank you. So that's been a big thing that admin has been working on the past few months, and we'll continue to work on as we move forward. So does anybody have any questions?
I don't think so.
Sorry, I'm the least boring one, so.
One of the most important.
Yeah, well, thank you, Heather.
Thanks, Heather.
We appreciate it. All righty, moving on to Parks and Rec. Josh, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. How's everyone?
Doing well.
Good. I am Josh Queen. I'm the new Parks and Recreation Director. So I'm super excited about this role. As you know, Hurricane Helene hit our park pretty bad, but it's moving now. We're starting to get some bids in. Ball field repair will start February the 1st. The fences bids went out, I think, this weekend, so it takes 21 days to bid out those. So it's moving slow, but we will get back to normalcy soon. So I'll give a little update a little later in this report. Past year accomplishments, I launched Pooches in the Park this year. I know it's a funny name, but I had to get creative with the name. It's a dog event. It was a huge success. Reached out to vendors such as veterinarians, people that make dog treats, canine unit. We actually adopted out 6 dogs at that event, so it was a huge success. Another event I want to highlight was our middle school adventure camp. 9 weeks, sold out in 5 minutes. Already have parents email me when the signups this year. So huge success. We brought it back. It wasn't ran until 2020, so we brought it back 2024, and we'll continue to have it as well. I'm not asking for a lot for 2025, 2026. Our main focus is rebuilding our park, and that's what I'm going to focus on. So no big expenses for 25, 26. Any questions for me?
I want to say in past years, we've had a discussion about staffing and Parks and Rec. Is that still
I'm
seem
not asking for
okay?
any staff this year. I think we're good with our staff.
Sounds good. Any questions?
How many full-time and part-time people do you know that you've got right now?
Yes, sir. I have 4 full-time employees and 3 part-time.
Any other questions?
And that may, that may change as we continue to maintain what we have, but as we expand, so that, that may be something that Josh should be bringing back, not necessarily this fiscal year we're working on, but in the future.
The
So-
future will look a lot different. I'm just going to do this role for a year and kind of see what it's about and then make some changes.
Yeah, and he needs time to get into the role and make his own assessment on capacity for
Sure.
maintenance staff there, so.
Any other- And I'll say your new events have been well done. Butchers in the Park was a lot of fun. I got to hold dogs, so can't be mad at that.
Yeah, thank you for coming to most of our events and supporting us. Thank you as the council.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
All righty, Police Department, Chief Terry.
Hello, Mayor, Council. Very quickly here, I'm going to hand something out here to you. You don't need to look at this at all, really it doesn't pertain too much to what we're talking about, but just some information about this police department, kind of an end of year summary, number-wise, what you can compare it to previous years, and so I'd like to put that out there. Hopefully, as this upcoming year comes along, I'll be talking to the manager a little bit more about the future, what we want to do, and some of that stuff will come into play at that point, but it's really not going to have anything to do with the conversation, so no need to dive into it at this moment. Since I've been here in 2021, obviously staffing's been a pretty big issue. You've heard me talk about staffing a lot. And as we stand today, at this very moment, on paper at least, we are full. And so what I mean by that is we have one in BLET, and we hope he passes BLET, and he'll do very well. I think he will. He's a young man in very good shape. I think he'll be successful there, and then we'll put him in our training process here at the police department. And then we have another individual in the hiring process. So if she gets through the hiring process, she has some prior experience, so she won't be required to go to BLET, so she would actually be able to start a little quicker. And then if this young man can get through the BLET process and they both work out, we'll be full. And that'll be the first time we'll be full since I've been here in the last 4 years. So we are excited about that. Increasing community engagement has been ongoing since I started as well. We look for new opportunities to be out there in the community, be seen. Some of the stuff Josh mentioned, being at the park. We like to participate in those type of things, so kind of just give you an idea of where we are. In 2022, for the calendar year 2022, we were involved in 24 different community engagement events. That's the police department. 2023, we increased that to 45, and this past year, we were involved in 52 different community engagement events, and, for the most part, we had all of October and half of November off, because we had several events we canceled because the events were canceled because of the storm. So that number probably been a little higher if not for the hurricane. But we'll continue to look for opportunities, and the additional staffing obviously should help us with that. We completed our 3rd annual No Shave November fundraiser, and our guys always enjoy that. That's kind of fun for us. And so this year we raised $5,300 that we donated to TIP, the Trauma Intervention Program. So we consider that as part of our community engagement. We previously did apply for a grant for side-by-side, so we could be out in the parks, make it easier for us to get to those back trails and visit people, be seen at the park. We were turned down for that grant. Originally, we were told we were doing well and moving forward, then a week later we got another email, we were turned down, but we're in the process of trying that again, and maybe because of the storm and everything going out for the park, it might be a good opportunity. We can utilize that to our advantage, and maybe we'll have some better luck. That application expires at the end of this month, so we got to get that submitted pretty quickly. But that's ongoing. This present budget year, we hired a part-time evidence custodian, and that is working out very well. She's got a lot of previous experience working in law enforcement. Her husband is retired law enforcement out of Florida. He presently works part-time for the Hendersonville Police Department, and she retired from Advent. She was a physician's assistant, not a nurse practitioner, a physician's assistant. And now she's helping us with our evidence cleaning up our evidence room and making sure that's professional, and we're using best practices, and we're presently in the process of doing an inventory there to make sure everything is in check and good as far as evidence goes. You probably know evidence is a high-risk operation for any police department when you're dealing with drugs, guns, and money and all that stuff. And typically, police chiefs get fired and people get arrested because something was missing in evidence. So we want to make sure we had somebody professional there, and we're very happy with her performance thus far, and I'm sure will continue to be that way. And then I reported maybe a month or two ago that our crime rates are the lowest they have been as far back as records will take us, which was 2008 was as far back as I could find actual records, and our numbers this year were lower than they've ever been. So I'm very happy about that, but I don't want to settle with that, and so again, coming this year, and it might relate more to that handout I gave you as I begin to have discussions with the manager looking at the future, I'm motivated to try to push them down even farther and make sure they stay down, and I have some ideas for that. But again, that's not necessarily a discussion for today, but maybe for next year. But I wanted to start giving you information so as these discussions start happening, you're kind of aware and you're informed. So that's kind of some of the big things we got going on this year. As far as the upcoming budget here, setting salaries aside, salaries tend to go up, and the benefits related to those salaries tend to go up on an annual basis, and I don't have really any control over that. But the rest of the budget, my plan is to, we need some increases in some line items, just based on increased costs. The job is becoming much more technical, and best practices involve using technology. Recently we got the body cameras, and that's something we need to have. Tasers. Axon is the company that handles tasers. They kind of have a monopoly on the tasers, and I look forward to the day when they don't, so I can buy them from somebody else. Axon is kind of like Apple. They make a great product, but they're not a good company, because they nickel and dime you for everything. And so our tasers are outdated. They don't service them anymore. You can't buy those same tasers. So now you got an upgrade. You got to buy the new fancy stuff, and that's just one example of many. Training becomes more expensive, and just equipment is more expensive. Our vehicles, getting our vehicles worked on are more expensive, and all this computer stuff we're having to deal with today, having that stuff fixed is more expensive. But what I'm looking to do, as far as wants, last year I requested some flock cameras. I know there was discussion about flock cameras. That is really my big want for, and I should have started with this. That's really my big want. That would be about $15,000 to install 4 cameras. Once we install those 4 cameras, we'll have access to many more cameras, because we'll have access to Henderson County's cameras, Hendersonville's cameras, Greenville, South Carolina's cameras. I think Columbus or Tryon has a camera. One of those 2 jurisdictions has cameras. We'll have access to a lot of other cameras, and I can provide many examples of just this last calendar year where those cameras have helped us in investigations. There's very serious investigations, so I'd like to get those cameras up. But the good news is, I'd mentioned that there are some line items that I think we need to increase, just because the cost of business has increased. I think there are also some line items we're going to be able to decrease, because being fully staffed is going to help us with being able to decrease some other areas. Fuel costs are trending downward, so we're hopefully able to save some money there. So my goal is, setting salaries aside again, is that not to increase the budget at all. I'd like to increase a few line items where I think we need more money, but I think I could compensate on the other end by decreasing some other line items, and so hopefully we won't have to increase the budget at all, and I think I could get those flock cameras in there for that price as well. So that's my plan. So I really, again, setting salaries aside, I think we can, with the budget we have, we can move some of the money around in the various line items. We can accomplish what we need to, at least for this next budget year.
And Chief, if I can just interrupt you for a second, if you can explain the flock cameras, what that is. I know we have,
Sure,
Councilman McKinney's are new.
You've probably seen some as you drive up and down the road. If you start heading towards Hendersonville on 25 there, and you get by Fletcher Fire Department, I'm not sure which one that is that 3? But there's a camera over there. If you go into Buncombe County, past Ingalls, a little distance, there's a camera. It'll be on a pole, it's on the side of the road, and it is a camera, and it records all the vehicles that go through there. And we're able to search that, so it's a big giant database, software we can go on and we can search. Obviously, if we have a license plate, we just put that license plate in, and it'll tell us if that car went through. It'll tell us the time, date and time that the car went through. And again, if we're looking for somebody involved in a crime, like I said, we'll have access to numerous cameras, not just the ones inside of Fletcher. So if they drove through Greenville, and recently we had, if you recall, we had that missing young girl and her father. Her father ended up getting killed in Haywood County, got in a shootout with some deputies in Haywood County. But they had gone missing there for a couple weeks, and it was our case. And we had tracked them to South Carolina. We had tracked them Minnesota. We tracked them up to North Dakota, and that was primarily done through the flock cameras. Now, once we found out where they were at, because of the flock cameras, we were able to do some other work and actually contact people that had contact with them. So we actually talked to people that had seen them face to face, so we were able to confirm exactly where they were and what they were doing and what shape they were in. But we wouldn't have even known to look at North Dakota if it wasn't for these cameras and stuff. So that's just a recent event. It was probably about a month ago where we used those cameras. But if you don't have a full license plate, you could put red Toyota, you could put red car, and it'll bring up every red car that went through that intersection. So let's say we have a robbery at a gas station down at the truck stop, and then, you know, all we get is, it was a red car, and the first two digits on the place, I think, were KN. That's all I saw was KN. You could put red car and KN, it'll give you every red car and KN that went through there. Now you got a full license plate, because it's gonna give you a picture of that car, a full license plate. And again, we can search, we'll be able to search those cameras all over, not just in Fletcher. So that'll be what they call force multiplier. That'll be a big deal. And what we do now is we'll reach out to Henderson County to help us, but, you know, they don't necessarily have skin in the game, and they're always helpful. But, you know, we can't ask them to sit in front of the computer for 2 hours. They can do a quick search. You know, if we have a full plate, that's easy. But if we're asking them, we'll try this, try that, you know, to expect them to sit there, you know, and spend 2-3 hours on one of our cases, you know, that's somewhat unreasonable, especially if it's a minor case. And we take minor cases very seriously, but we can't expect other jurisdictions that, you know, spend half. They got their own problems. They don't need to be spending a full day searching computers to help us on what they might perceive as a minor case, where if it was ours, and we had access to it, we would spend all day doing it, because we want to look out for the interests of Fletcher. So, was that good as far as an explanation goes?
Yeah, it probably good as a refresher, but I know,
Yeah, and I can
you know,
provide
Amber
pictures
being
of
a
what it
new
looks like,
council
and I
member.
certainly can provide more details as we go farther along. So that's my really only want. There are other things we need, like we need to start getting tasers, but I think if I can increase a couple of those line items, I should be able to pick up what we need for this next budget year. And again, by decreasing other line items, I think we could do it without raising the budget.
And just one other point on the flock cameras. I know I put that on the list of project help that's related kind of to the legislative priority list when we meet with our legislative delegation members and forward that information to them. So that'll continue to be shared with them in the new year. So.
Now, Chief Terry, do you get a report from those flock cameras of how many times it's being used and what it was used for?
As far as internally, our department,
Yeah, I'm just curious, I mean, is it just on your computers downstairs and everybody has access to it? Or
No.
whatever?
What we would do, if we had the cameras, what we would do, we'd create a policy for those cameras. And when I was in Illinois, I was part of, they weren't flock, but they were similar, same concept. And we would write a policy for it, so you couldn't just be nilly-willy running people's plates. That was a big issue in Illinois, I mean, the government there, I mean, they were concerned about Big Brother. They didn't want, and this sounds terrible and maybe somewhat funny, but they didn't want to know who was, you know, cheating on who and who had somebody in the car with them they shouldn't have. You know, so that was a big deal, that we had to get across that hurdle before they'd approve these cameras. And so we would write policy where basically if they're going to run a check, then they're going to have to, you know, put in a case number connected to this case. And then we would probably the detective sergeant who oversees detectives would audit that on a monthly basis. He would have to go through, look at all our camera searches and make sure it was connected to a case.
You just have a log that you follow.
Yeah. So, yeah, we wouldn't just, we wouldn't just give everybody access and just let them run wild. Bad things happen. I'm not, I trust our people, we got wonderful people, but, you know, the temptation is there if it's that easy.
Well,
We would set up a procedure, a policy for that.
And I can speak to it a little bit because I used it at Henderson County. It actually gives real-time notifications, so if we're looking for a vehicle with this license plate, the next time it comes through Fletcher, it will hit It went to my cell phone and my computer and immediately gave me an instant real-time notification that that car is in the area and everybody can start looking for it.
We've already done amazing things with it, and that's bothering the sheriff's office to help us with it. So we had it by ourselves. It's going to pay for itself.
Oh, yeah.
As far as case closed.
Well, you're already using it, this just takes out the hassle of having to go aggravate Henderson
Yes,
County.
basically, yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, so it's just,
And more hit points.
absolutely, no, I get it, I get it.
To
I mean,
capture
it's-
data
It helps everyone.
in town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like it, I get it.
I appreciate hearing a real-world example, though very unfortunate. I think it really highlights the value of the cameras, though, again, very unfortunate.
Yeah, and I can get more examples, like, we use it pretty frequently, our.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm glad to hear that the department's fully staffed. I'm not sure I've ever heard that, to be honest. And so I'm kind of curious about turnover and what that's looked like in the past year, and if there are things that we need to do to be able to support you all so that that turnover isn't what it's been in the past.
This past year has been good. We had a couple people that left maybe a year ago, maybe a few months that probably needed to leave. So I think we're getting good quality people. I think people are adjusting to the culture, they're adjusting to the expectations. They're doing wonderful work. I'll go back to those crime rates. They're low, but I don't think we should just settle and accept them where they're at. I think we need to keep trying to either keep them low or make them lower. And I think the guys they've really stepped up, and they've impressed me in a lot of ways. I mean, I've seen them do stuff that I myself probably wouldn't have done, at least not back when I, pushed a patrol car around. And so sometimes I go, you did what? I'm like, wow, that just amazes me that they take that extra step, and they can be very service-oriented. I mean, they can step up and take care of the hard business when they need to, but they're also pretty kind and compassionate when they need to as well. I think we're getting a good group of people who accept the mission and they go out and, do what we ask them to do. And so I think I'm happy right now with the group we got. Now, you got young people that, they get excited looking at bigger departments, and they start thinking, grass is greener there, or they want to get involved in a K-9, or they want to be part of a K-9 program or drug program, various things like that. There's always a chance, they're young, and if I was young again, I might feel the same way. So you might, you lose one or two that way. But I think overall, we got a good group of, the character's good, and I think the culture is good. Hopefully that'll keep people here. Giving what they need, making sure they're well-trained, making sure they got good equipment, recognizing the good work they do, and then cutting them loose and letting them do it will hopefully, keep morale up and keep them motivated.
Sounds good. Well done.
Anything else?
Do we have any other questions, Chief? Well done, we appreciate you, Chief.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Chief.
All righty, moving on to Public Works, Mr. Jabbo.
Mr. Mayor, council, glad to see you today. I've really enjoyed this time of year where we get to talk about things that helps each one of us. When we do a budget, it's about what we can do to better serve the town of Fletcher. And, it's not necessarily a burden, but it's just something that we need to know what's going on and so we can be accountable for. This past year, I asked for a couple of things. We got trash cans. We got a truckload of trash cans, about 500 of them. And it's probably a good thing because we were really getting low. And then the two new developments on Rutledge Road, they're filling up. We take on average one or two a week there. It seems like, and sometimes it's more than that. And then back when the hurricane hit, we lost over 100 trash and recycle cans. Some of them floated away, some of them blew away, some of them trees fell on. But that's what we went through. However, Heather was talking about the FEMA, all the things we was doing for FEMA. She's really been a big asset on this because we met with those and they's asking about some things. I didn't even think about it, but we turned in, I think at that time it was 85 trash cans that we lost, that we can get, a portion back to that. So that's good on that part.
Well done.
Yeah. And so I'm glad we got those because if we didn't, we'd have been putting duct tape around some of the busted ones. so that's good that we didn't because, who wants a new trash can with duct tape on it? Another thing that I asked for last year was the update on, to update our lighting. you know, the situation. If you come in that back door, it's like coming through the dark alley. Because you can't see a thing. And we can't get a ballast for it because they're just not there. We run into a couple of issues with Duke Power on the first estimate that they give us and everything that's going on. The problem is the LED lights have to have and it's more technical than it is anything. I mean, it's a bunch of numbers, you know, it's like a J473, all this stuff that they say. These lights are T5s and they have to be compatible with a certain type of dimmer or motion sensor. And so we've got that worked out. Everything's good on it. It's getting ready to take place. So we're looking to start within the next week or so at getting all these lights replaced. And that will be a great benefit. The cost savings, you know, I think is after 7 years, it would pay for us what we're spending out. Just by the cost savings of electricity. One of the guys that was there, he was a representative for Duke Power, and was talking about some of the in-hall, the lights that go in the stairwell. He says, you could leave this on all day. He says, all day. He says, all the lights in that stairwell would burn less electricity than one of the fluorescent lights. One. And there's about 4 in each one. So it's good. It's going to be a benefit to us. Another thing is the brush truck. This is through the CIP. We put this on our list. Our other brush truck it's reaching its age to where it's going to have to be moved out. However, we will keep it as a spare. And they got it built. It's ready to ship it just right after the first of the year. And when they got the truck, it had an engine coat on it. So they've had to reset it. So it should be on our way here within the next 2 weeks. However, it's going to sit idle for just a little while until we get through all the FEMA collections of all the brush and debris that's on the side of it. But when it's not, we'll have it ready and it'll be ready to go. And I thank you for each one of these things. These things are very beneficial to us, each one of them. It makes our life easier, it makes the community easier, and the rest is a pleasure. This next coming year, I got about 4 things I'm going to ask for. The first one is I come to a hard realization after Hurricane Helene hit, just how short-staffed I am. I'm going to ask for another employee. We spent a lot of time, you know, just trying to recoup and make progress so that we could have access to everything. Some of my guys canceled vacation. If I hadn't, I don't know what, I realized just then how short-handed we were and all, especially with the growth that Fletcher's had. You know, last year we moved the garbage to Monday, and so we're actually doing garbage for 4.5 days, and they took our garbage crew away from us on Mondays, and they pretty much has took it away from us because that's when they're doing all their maintenance on their trucks on Mondays, is doing everything they can on that part. And I'm suffering. I'm not suffering as far as wearing these guys out, but it's a lot of things that we have to do that is required of us from the town, and it's expected of us. But when we're short-handed, it's hard to do that. Mm-hmm. And you take a small department like us, there's 9 of us down there, counting myself, and they say, I don't count. But anyway, I repeatedly tell
It's
them.
debatable.
Yes. But you know, 3 people designate the garbage every day. And we've got mechanics, that's 4. Plus me is 5, so that leaves 4 people to do everything else that goes on. And if one of them's on vacation or somebody's sick, or this past week we had a couple guys out due to their water froze and busted. So, you know, it's just things happen. I just not realized until this hurricane hit just exactly how short-staffed I am. And so I'd like to request that. And I will have numbers at our next meeting to explain to it, not just to say, you know, I want one because I need one. I'll try to justify what's going on.
And the full-time staff member, right?
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah.
We have a part-time, he works up here, and he works 16 hours a week, just cleaning.
Right.
Another thing I'd like to request would be a mower. I put this on the list last year, but we got turned down. Our 2008 mower, it's junk. It fell apart. Then it got flooded, so it's washed and it's a clean piece of junk right now, but it's on the sale line. Our next mower is a 2009, so you're looking at a mower that's 16 years old that's been used repeatedly every week during the mowing season for that. And I'd like to consider that to be replaced. Another thing I'd like to see that we could add to our public works department is cameras for all our vehicles. Currently, we have cameras in two vehicles, and that's our garbage truck. And you would not believe how many times we have been involved, not necessarily ourselves, but involved with an accident where we were witnesses to it. And they looked through the cameras to say, okay, this is exactly what happened. You know, they said this, the other one said this, but when you see the camera, it shows exactly what's happened. And so I think that would just be a safety feature for us, is to have cameras. So we could, you know, someone says, well, this is what's happened. It's not necessarily is that true. We hear that a lot. You missed my garbage. Well, let's look at the camera. And if we missed it, we'll be right out and get it. If not, we'll have a conversation. And you can usually tell if someone's missed it or not, because, or if they didn't have certain house because they'll stutter and stammer around. But it's you know, black and white is truth. I mean, that's what we need.
About how many vehicles need a camera?
We'd like to put it on a brush truck, our sweeper truck, and 5 pickups. And maybe 2 dump trucks if we get a chance. So we're looking about 9. And it's not going to be as bad as you think, but it. And the last thing is we have a 2003 model tire changer that the diaphragm's busted on the inside. You can't leave it plugged up because it does, the air compressor runs nonstop. And we had someone come out and look at repairing it. And to repair it, it's going to be about $3,800. And to replace it, it's just going to be about $7,000. And it will be a little bit more user-friendly and safer operation than what we're using. It's just like anything, you know, Matthew mentioned technology. You wouldn't think it'd be that much technology. And like 2 years ago, we got a tire bouncer that would balance the wheels for the police cars because ours would not do it. And this thing here, you just put it on and you start mashing buttons and it does it itself. And and the tire bouncer will be the same way. It has better ways of doing everything. And this is just something we use in our day-to-day operations. We change all the tires at our shop for ourselves, except for the big trucks and all the police cars and parks and rec vehicles. And the tire changers use quite regularly. And that's what I would like to ask for this coming year. And you see what we got this past year. And I appreciate everything that you've ever done for me, I'll be honest with you.
I think you all have some valid ask. Any questions for Jabbo?
Is the mower used at the park? What mower are we talking
No, our mower is used, we mow 25 around town properties here and certain areas throughout the town.
Okay.
But you all do go help Parks and Rec mow sometimes, right?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
Our shoulders are broad, we have to carry them every once in a while. I'll tell you what, for the past 3 months, we've seen nothing but the park, it seems like.
Yeah, yeah.
I get it.
Well, we appreciate y'all's work.
Yep, thank you for
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jabbo.
Thanks, Java.
All righty, going on to planning and zoning. Eric, the floor is yours.
Compliment Jabbo, he went pretty quick this time. So. I always love going after Jabbo. Before I jump into mine, I want to voice a second to Jabbo's staffing request, just because one of the ongoing programs that I oversee is largely our stormwater program, and he and I have coordinated through the years, the last few years in particular on this, and it's just one of those intangibles that, when I'm trying to get out with the Land to Sky rep for something that involves a little quick meeting with Jabbo. It's like, I cannot bother Jabbo when it's really hit the fan, and especially in the last few months. So I just know that over the time, we're going to have growing needs with regard to various infrastructure needs and whatnot, and stormwater is a big part of that and compliance with that program. So I just wanted to voice opinion to that while it was fresh on my mind. So I'm here in front of you. Most of you know from years past, I've never really had too much in the way of big picture items, just being kind of an administrative planning and zoning. everything I'm pretty much going to talk to you about today is in anticipation of me retiring at the end of October this year. So there's some unusual staffing consideration that I'll be talking to you about. It would not be a typical thing to hire one's replacement while the department head is still here, but being a one-person department, Mark and I have been talking, Mark would probably say way too much about it, but we've been having very frequent conversations about me leaving at the end, near the end of the year. And right now, assuming that the council and Mark all go along with this, the idea is that we would want to see the town hire my successor with about 2 or 3 months remaining in my time here, just to sort of have a more seamless transition, not so much to train them. We hope that we see someone capable and hopefully more capable than me come in to the employment with the town. But just some of those intangibles, like, orienting them to the town, introducing them to all the various parties and other agencies and other departments that I coordinate with. Simple things like showing how to use permit software, things that are unique to our organization. So one of the budget items that I'll be working with Heather on, because she always handles the salaries, is we'll be figuring out how to request 2 to 3 months of extra salary and benefits, anticipating that person coming on board around August or September later this year. There are some other related items to this that I'll shift to. I continue to work with McGill on matters to our stormwater program, as I mentioned. Hopefully, we'll be maintaining the current budget levels, although I'm having them look at the possibility of budgeting for handling the entirety of the stormwater program, just because you don't know, when you're hiring a planning director, you don't necessarily know what level of knowledge they're going to have on stormwater. It is not a typical planning and zoning function. I know there are people out there that in other agencies that wear all the various hats and whatnot, so it's just kind of an unknown. You might get someone that knows more about stormwater than I do. So that would mean less on McGill's shoulders. So again, I want to keep the McGill budget level for stormwater program either at or just above the current level, just for the anticipating the unknown, so to speak. I've already talked with Matthew, who went first today, about tech needs for the transition period. He came in my office, we looked around, there's an area in my outer office where my drafting table is, that when this building was designed, it was built in a way that anticipated future growth, and that outer foyer could be a little cubicle village someday. So it's wired for phones and computers, so there wouldn't really have to be any great work. So when another person comes in, there's going to be a little bit of tripping over each other for a few months, but there will need to be a little bit of tech need. But it's largely already covered, so any expense should be very minimal on that front. Excuse me.
And Erica, just for Amber's benefit on the stormwater, if you could just explain a little bit the MS4 permitting versus just at real high level, but just to be clear that this is compliance stuff that we have to do based on federal regulations and not stormwater service in the sense of what we're doing to make the stormwater flow, managing stormwater issues in general, like something that Public Works or a utility be a little bit more involved in. This is stormwater quality and some things to help with stormwater flow.
Mark just said it for me, so. But Amber, if also outside of this meeting, at any point in time, we could get together if you want kind of a broader overview of some of the various functions that I'm kind of very quick fire talking about today. We can certainly do that before the main budget workshop in March, but Mark nailed it.
And that's a good suggestion.
The stormwater program is we're under a permit with the state of North Carolina for, that requires us to maintain a stormwater program where there's a bunch of different minimum measures that we have to comply with, ranging from, fluffy feel-good public outreach and public involvement in education, all the way to, how new developments manage their stormwater in a way that addresses water quality issues, as Mark mentioned, and things like illicit discharge, or basically pollution dumping into the stormwater system. So there's a bunch of minimum measures that that we oversee. We've got McGill Associates helping us with a number of these measures. Land to Sky does a little bit of work for us. Basically, we really ramped this program up in 2019 after, the vast majority of local jurisdictions in the state of North Carolina were found to be in violation of their permits because they really weren't running a good program. That was because of bad state oversight, and the feds, all the way up to the EPA, got on the state, and they expected the state to kind of corral all the local programs into getting more attention to their stormwater program. So, but I'm happy to talk to you more in depth outside. So again, I'm going to probably also be adding a little bit of cushion to my department supply, travel training budget, dues and subscriptions budget. Not so much for myself, obviously, but just for not knowing what certifications my successor will come in with. You may get someone that's AICP, that's like the American Institute of Certified Planners, which I've never had that. I've had a CZO, that's a zoning official certification, and a floodplain manager certification. So depending on what they come in with versus what they need, they may have to go to school for a few weeks for CZO or floodplain, because again, floodplain's not always a flood planning and zoning branch. In larger cities, it's up and under their engineering departments. So I'm going to bump up those line items just not significantly. It's like there's always a chuckle when I show you my few $100 increases here and there on various line items. So, but anyway, I'll just be incorporating that, and it may be that a lot goes back into the general fund at the end of the next fiscal year. So that's everything that I can think of as it relates to that transition. The only other bigger picture thing that is very nebulous currently, especially in the wake of Hurricane Helene, and this wouldn't so much be would be my department need, but it would kind of be a combination of working with Mark under probably the CIP, and beginning to loop Josh in on matters concerning greenways. You remember from past discussions, and Amber, again, this is something we can catch up on outside too, but council, most of you will remember that we had given the green light to Rebecca at the Land Conservancy to go after a couple little grants for possible greenway extension. And in doing so, we didn't actually vote to commit match, but in principle, we kind of verbally okayed the pledging of matches on these grants should we get them. It doesn't commit us. We could always turn it down if we needed to, but where I'm going with this is that the storm hit September 27th. Literally a week or two later, we got word on one of these grants that it was the small one, that the $100,000 grant that we pledged a $100,000 match to. We learned we got an award on that. With the scope of the damage and the current trails and whatnot, and obviously you can't take this grant money for repairs. I basically got in touch with the person the contact for that one, and just said, how much time do we have to sort it all out? And so from around sometime middle of October, I was told that we have a year to decide if we're going to accept that grant. And she said in the wake of Helene, she says they have a feeling they'll probably be able to kick that can a little bit. We'll be confirming that by summer. You cannot do much with $100,000 matched with another $100,000. Now, the second grant Rebecca put in for, she actually put the application in after Helene because there was a few days of should we, shouldn't we, there's just too much unknown right now. But in the end, we did give her the go-ahead, as council had directed her to go for this second grant. Rebecca put together something that was in the range around $260,000 request. So that would be an additional match that we would have to do 50% on, another 260. That one we haven't heard about whether or not we're getting awarded that yet. So, and circling back is I know that Josh and the town and McGill are still in the throes of working with FEMA on the full assessment of the problems with the current trails. The hope is, I think Mark mentioned that we might get, did you say something around 75% reimbursement?
I mean, what we're hearing is in the range of 75% as far as the total cost for these repairs from FEMA, about 75%.
I guess we're kind of waiting to see where things shake out as far as what's going to be the true scope of damage to the current trails, and figure out then, you know, if we get this second award, you know, what can we kind of stitch together the first grant and the second grant together, and then come back with, you know, more significant requests. But any match request could come this fiscal year.
And I'd like to provide some context to that, because a lot of the storm damage wasn't necessarily to the trail itself, but more of the stream banks in a couple places. So, yes, we had a lot of tree debris across trails and some damage to the trail itself. More our issue was removing the debris, tree debris that went across the trails. And then we have a couple sections of the stream bank to repair, primarily down by Mills Gap Road. And then there's a little section kind of midway in the main section of the park. So those are our, and the reason those are an issue is the trail's really close to the stream. So I think as we get into designing these other portions, or hopefully someday new greenway trails or extensions of them, whatever we can do to have them back a decent distance from the stream, I think helps to protect the integrity of the trail, no matter what happens to, you gotta remember, streams are constantly being, on some level, reformed. You know, you get debris that goes down to another section and it forms, and you get the undulating type of deal. So, just some context to repair of the trails, and some of it's related to stream bank repair, because it's nice, our trails are close to the stream, but that's also a challenge, and not in all of it, but in some parts, it's a little bit of a challenge because of its closeness. And others where it's further back, it hasn't been an issue since I've been here, and I don't know if before that, and I've been here 19 years this month, so. But I just wanted to give that a little bit.
The long and short of it is that depending on the timing, I can't stand here right now and say when we're gonna hear about that second grant. I think if we get that one, that opens up way more opportunity as far as doing something, you know, on that other side that, you know, extend the sidewalk on the opposite side of 25 to around that guardrail that enters the Charlie Owen property and wraps back around towards the creek, not necessarily going right up to it and then on into our Meritor property. I think combining those two would be bigger bang for the buck. I don't know honestly what is going to get accomplished. I think, you know, I think that first grant that involved the 100,000, that's the one, if I remember right, just involved like more of a gravel surface. Now that was the one that
Soft,
couldn't be
yeah.
soft trails. So if nothing else, you know, there could be the opportunity for getting like a foothold onto that side of town. But the main point being is that it could be a budget consideration, and I don't know exactly, because it could be CIP money that would have to get programmed in to become that match. If it could be a total of $360,000 if we end up with both grants and the council wants to move ahead with just wanted to point that out today, and maybe we'll see what specifics we know by March, if anything's changed or not. We'll certainly let you know.
And just going back to, and please see if you have any questions for Eric on this, his transition from, into retirement, it would be nice, and if we can do this, to try and have some level of overlap. And the reason is, Eric's been here a long time. I mean, 22, 23 years, somewhere, so coming up on 20-some years. And there's kind of, he's involved in some code enforcement activities, your more traditional planning and zoning review and administration of a land development code, helping with the town center project, and it's kind of a broad, as much as we can get a new person acclimated into kind of what's our approach to code enforcement, how that works, and our general approach philosophy with implementing our land development code, I think would be helpful, because and I'm not just saying it because it's our planning, I think we have a good reputation as far as how our planning and zoning department operates in the development community without being, too lenient or too strict or particularly helpful with businesses. So I think that can be very helpful in that transition, so to keep things going smoothly, so.
Go ahead,
I
Eric.
was just gonna say, and they'll get 3 phone calls after I'm gone before I change my number, so.
I'm curious.
Change your number.
Yeah. I'm curious, because you do a lot in the town, so I think it makes a lot of sense to have that transition period where somebody's working with you. But with the substantial amount of growth we're seeing in town, is it sustainable just to have one person? I know you have a part-timer too, but do we have to expand that department at some point?
I've got opinions on that I wrestle in my own head with. I've always said that, I want to say the forbidden word of Asheville, but looking at Asheville as the 800-pound gorilla, they're boilerplate like that. I started my career in the city of Asheville, and I've often said that, my worst day in Fletcher is better than my best day in Asheville ever was, so I'll start with that. But we don't have near the volume that like in Asheville has, but we've got all the same subject matter. We have to deal with, the code enforcement, the long-term planning. It's like, so you're kind of spinning the plates. You don't have the ability to hire full-time people for the range of subject matter just by lack of the volume. That's where, it's like, at some point, the town will need, I don't know that we're there yet, at some point, the town will need to consider a staff engineer. Now, as I've done my own brainstorming, and I'll be bowing out at the end of October, and I think it's going to be for, Mark and future councils to decide on increasing staff. I'm not going out of here asking to increase staff levels except for this short transition period. I think a lot could be determined by what the applicant pool is like. You may find someone that's really strong that you want for, planning, let's just say, and don't really come in with code enforcement, because that's not always a guarantee either. Planning administrator and zoning administrator are not always hand in hand. There's a lot of considerations, don't have any of the answers today. At some point, I think we will need 2 full-time people and a part-time position. And how we transition to that is a little murky, because again, we're going to see over the years how this stormwater evolves. Like I said, you might need an engineer that could become your planning director, and then that engineer also would then be able to oversee the floodplain and the stormwater program really easily, and then take on some long-range planning initiatives and deal with the grants. And then you hire a zoning administrator who takes on more of the day-to-day stuff. And you have them work in tandem, and then you have like, part-time for basic stuff, clerical and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of ways we can kind of crack that nut, and, there's contracting out, like the stormwater element. I know Landed Sky has gotten into helping some of the local governments
Right.
with compliance. The part-time planner position that we have, it was full-time a long time back, and then things slowed down. We made it a part-time
We
position.
had a recession in '07,
Right.
'08, whenever
Yep.
that was, and that's
It-
when that position,
Yeah.
before we let it get cut, I came to the council asking for it to be reduced to part-time to avoid having it cut.
Yeah. So, or, breaking some of these other duties, responsibilities somewhere else. I don't mean dumping it on another person, but there may need to be other staff, new
Right.
staff to help with it. So there's a lot of different ways. Eric's got thoughts on it, so him and I are going to be working on it, and Heather, to see what's the best way moving forward. Maybe something changes on how we handle these, who's doing these tasks. So, but it's a pretty broad department with a lot of different hats and responsibilities, and
Yeah.
he kind of becomes a catch-all for sometimes for questions that the public calls and asks. What about the stormwater? What about X that could be something coded? And it's like they send it to planning and zoning because
Right.
It's like the old commercial with, Mike, you'll eat it. You'll eat anything.
Yeah.
So we've often said planning, zoning, floodplain, stormwater, and anything they don't know where to send down the front desk. But I know we all get a fair share of that it's just the nature of things.
Yeah. Sounds good. Do we have any questions for Eric? Other questions?
I got one real quick. So what you plan on doing after you retire?
To be determined.
To be there.
I just know it's 30 years of one thing minus sick time is going to be enough. So, yeah. I've been getting that question a lot, yeah. But
I can
it's
tell
like,
you on this side, I have a plan going in.
Yeah. So I'm working on it.
Trust me.
There's things working on here. Appreciate it.
Congratulations on your pending retirement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Congrats.
Big shoes to fill.
Thanks.
Thank you, Eric. All righty, moving on to accomplishments. Mark, the floor is yours.
Try and take you home here until we get to our break for dinner before the regular meeting. In terms of accomplishments overall for the past year, and I put had these three goals in the budget document, and it was discussed with y'all, and this was, one being about putting a budget together and implementing this that keeps us at our existing service levels with some moderate increases in our operational expense and revenues. And thankfully, we've been able to do that to this point without having to make any major modifications to our existing budget. And in light of the storm and the damages and expense, and that, it's not all going to be covered by FEMA, we're still in a good position to do that. So that's going well as far as implementing, and you've heard some of the specifics of things that we've accomplished this year, and things that have been funded. And we were able to thankfully keep our tax rate at the same rate for the current year at 28 cents. But sometimes, you run into things mid-year where you've got to make budget reductions, and we're not there, or revenues are coming in really poorly. We're not there, but, and I'll talk about sales tax a little bit. That's one that's, it's not hitting in our budgeted projection for current, or at least for the first 3 months that are reflected at this point for the fiscal year. So we have a lot of time left, but as that trends and we get information we'll get information from the League of Municipalities about advice on our state shared revenues like sales tax and utility sales, and that'll help in making our projections. And we see what we've collected, we observe what's going on in the economy, and then we put, our best educated projection together for that. But that, that's one goal. Doing our CIP projects, our capital improvement plan projects within the 7 cents that we dedicate out of our 28-cent tax rate, so what 7 cents on the levy produces. And Amber, I need to get you a copy of our capital improvement plan so you can kind of see the parameters on that. So most of our projects are complete with the exception of the lighting conversion that Jabo had mentioned, and Matthew's still working within IT on some of our computer replacement in there. And then the last goal was kind of engaging the services of retail strategies to get a better idea of what our retail gaps and retail opportunities are. And as explained then, and still, it's an ongoing process and it takes time in doing that. They are making some progress towards identifying companies and then making contacts out to groups that can work with them for our town center project. And then the other part towards the town center, we had engaged McGill Associates to do some kind of additional preliminary engineering analysis, and that's underway. They've updated the wetlands delineation on our property, and they're now working on fill requirements. If they were to suggest like where residential, commercial would go. So before long, I'll have them back for an update on that and progress. So we're doing decently on those goals within the current fiscal year as far as progress. I want to mention the capital improvement plan. And again, it's a 5-year capital improvement plan. We're in year 4 right now. The budget we're working on will be year 5. So we'll have projects to recommend that get funded in year 5 of the CIP in this fiscal year we're working on. And then we'll be working on an update to the 5-year CIP. I'll have instructions that'll go out to department heads. And then we'll, in the fall, late fall, we'll be working on updating the 5-year CIP. But this one will be the 5th year of the current 5-year. And again, 7 cents towards our tax rate. 5 of those 7 cents we try and apply towards debt service for current or new projects. And then the other 2 cents what the levy produces towards projects that we purchase with cash or cash funded. And you've heard about some of them, like the cash side was not chipper, but the brush collection truck that Jabo was talking about. So as far as projects that we've got completed on the cash side, the brush collection truck is in and I'm sorry, let me jump back to debt service. So for y'all's information, again, as a reminder on the debt service side, we've got a bunch of projects that are funded in there. One's the town hall financing from when this was built. We bought the land to the north of town hall. We rebuilt Old King Creek Road. So there's just over $326,000 in debt service on that. Highway 25 land acquisition, so that was when we bought the property up here for the town center project between Howard Gap and Fanning Bridge, and that's at just over $161,000 in debt service. The garbage truck that we bought 3 years ago, I think this will be year 3, the last year of our financing for that, so that's our newest of our garbage trucks, and that's at just over $102,000. And actually, I think this current year, I'll have to look in the 3-year, it might be the last payment, and this upcoming we won't, so that's paid off. But that was in the current fiscal year. And then we have some obscure ones, copier lease payments at over $12,000 we have to include in our debt financing, and subscription payments. These are some IT things at just over $15,000. So that's our debt service projects. our non-debt, so the ones we pay for with cash. I mentioned the brush collection truck. Our police department does a vehicle rotation, and we had budgeted 3, and we've got 2 in, or is it all 3, Chief, now, of our vehicles we purchased within CIP for the current fiscal year? Yeah, it was just 2, and we were only going to do 2, that's right, this year. So we had 3, we only needed 2, so those are in, so that's done. And then the computer workstations that Matthew talked a little bit about, that's kind of midway in there. And then Jabbo talked about the lighting conversion, so that's underway but not complete. And then I'll be bringing back kind of that recommendation for year 5, what's in there. I know Eric talked a little bit about our Greenway development, and we did put in there every year that we could do up to 100,000 in, on the cash side in CIP to be contributed towards Greenway construction, and also could be used as a match. So that's a little bit on CIP and goals. And then revenues, and I know this is very broad or high level, we'll be getting a little bit more specifics at the March budget workshop and kind of where we're at. And I'll also at that point have, should have 1 to 2 revenue projections or value projections for our property tax base. So from the county, and the county tax assessor provides that. It'll still be pretty preliminary, but really by April, May, we have a much better idea. But good thing, you know, our unassigned fund balance came in really strong. You heard our update from our auditor on that. We're at 65.5%. So that's at 6.4 million, a little over that. So we're at the upper end of our range for the percentage of fund balance we want to keep. So 65% is the upper range. So at that 0.5%, we'll either be coming back with a recommendation to spend some of that down or just apply it towards some of the expenses. That'll likely be the recommendation of what we're going through with the storm damage, particularly the park repairs. So, but we're in really good shape on that. Town's in good shape financially. The growth in our ad valorem tax base, typically we've been in the 2 to 3% range. I'm concerned we may be, and I don't have any projections yet from the tax assessor's office, but that we could be more in the flat range, just based on damage from the storm. We were one of the municipalities or areas that had flood damage to some of our manufacturers. It really wasn't as much, at least when I've heard from the Partnership for Economic Development, I don't think that was as much of an issue in other parts of the county. So I mean, we had Raffletac that's in Fletcher on King Creek Road. We had Diamond Brand, which I don't think is reopening. Canvas Prints is one of our newer ones. Diamond Brand, Canvas Prints, and some others are impacted by the flooding in Fletcher Business Park, the old steel case building. So, you know, we've had expansions. We've, you know, our new companies, Tagios. So there's been other good things that help level that off. But, you know, on the industrial, commercial side, you know, adding all those things up and depreciation on personal property, that part of the tax base, that's machinery and equipment. You know, we could be leveling off or maybe even going lesser on our base. But we'll see. I don't, you know, be gloom and doom on that, but I'm not anticipating with factoring all those things in unless we have a lot of industry expansion or new ones coming in that we're going to see a lot of growth there. So, but we'll get projections from the tax assessor's office on the ad valorem values that affect our property taxes. Sales tax, right now for our collections, so we've got October, November, December, almost to January. We should be getting that soon. So we're about 4 months in, and I don't know what January's is. I'll have to ask Heather, she's not in here right now. But so far, we've been below our average that we should be getting for monthly. And so it's concerning. I mean, that's our second largest source of tax revenue to the town is sales tax. And so I think it's been more of a statewide issue, not necessarily what's going on in Henderson County. But some of that spending's come down, some of the construction activity and some other things. We're going to continue to monitor that. We'll have several more months in by the time we get to March with the all-day budget workshop, and we'll be getting closer to the information that the league sends to us that helps us to calculate some of these for sales tax, utility sales tax, and some other state shared revenues, they call them. Utility sales tax, which is our third largest source of income to our general fund. The first distributed quarterly was on budget, so that was on target, so that was good. So we'll be hopeful to hit that or go above. And just to give you some perspective too, most years we are exceeding our projections on property tax. Right now we are, as far as billed versus what we budgeted for property taxes ad valorem. We normally are for sales tax. We are not at this point in the current fiscal year, which is concerning, because we typically budget it conservative enough that we're not under budgeting on the revenue side. So, you know, and we have time still through the year, but the sales tax one, I'll probably be a little more concerned about what's our ultimate projection I'll be bringing back to you that helps fund everything that we do and it has an impact on that. So you need to go out there and spend money on the retail side. Tell your friends and relatives whatever you need to get, now's the time. To the best of your ability. Don't rack up credit card debt or anything, yeah. But, you know, we haven't seen in our local economy here that the retail has been down that much, but obviously something's happening out there. Two things. Interest rates got crazy. I mean, they got really high. We had a lot of that go up, and that affects credit card debt. So people carrying credit card debt, you know, they hopefully are making some changes, pulling back on some spending there. I'm sorry, the other thing. I know interest rates hurt that, and that brought some of that down. So, those things are impacting spending, retail spending. Let's see, other projects, kind of big picture going the year. We're going to continue our dialogue with developers. I'm going to be working on some other pieces to kind of market our property a little bit better. We'll have the information obviously coming back from Retail Strategies and them working that, and then McGill's information. I know we've talked about greenways, but greenway expansion, we'll continue to work with Conserving Carolina, but also our legislators to request funding assistance in the General Assembly to help with that, and also federal level sources. And then the repair projects at the park is kind of the third thing, and it's a high priority. I'll have an update a little later for you on kind of where things are heading, and we're moving, and McGill's helping us, our engineering firm, but those are kind of some big pictures, and if y'all have other thoughts now or as we continue to progress on this as far as projects, priorities, this is kind of the time to express that. So that's all I had.
All right, questions, comments from Mark? Well, I'll be looking forward to hearing more about this taxes overall in our town going forward, particularly sales tax, it sounds like.
Yeah. Me
We
too.
appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, council, before we recess? All righty. Do we have a motion to recess until 6 PM?
Make a motion.
We have a motion to recess until 6 PM. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to recess. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of recessing, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, we are on recess until 6 PM. Thank all y'all. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah.
We transferred all that money into that general fund from the ARPA money. Couldn't we use part of that if we wanted to, if we agreed to it? Like on that lawnmower and tire machine and stuff to keep the big ticket items down so that our taxes don't go up?
You could,
You know what I'm saying? I mean,
but
That's such a little-
that's so small in
It's
this.
such a
I mean,
little amount
I mean,
that
I
we-
would recommend if you're gonna make capital, if you're gonna, and you do need to at some point use that money
Yeah,
towards a
exactly.
meaningful project and not let it just sit there. Something a little bigger, like bang, like I mean, it may never happen, but the library, let's say that gets legs,
Yeah.
and I know we will laugh about it,
Yeah,
but
man.
I believe Bill Lapsley will. I don't know if are we recessed? I
You can go, you can expedite the process in 14 days. They won't even take it if you want in 14 days, it has to be within 14 days, but you might have to drive it online. This is your last day. I thought I heard you on the radio. Nope, it wasn't you. No, that's when's your, get your part? I did. I sent you these, you didn't. So, we're gonna do it this past Saturday with the snow. Okay, well, maybe I did send you an email. It makes Florida look like trash. Go down to Florida, it ain't dirty. It's requested. I got a call.
All day again tomorrow.
Wow, must be bad out there. All right, let's go eat. So we have time to do that.
There's other things that, I mean, I can show you, there are other things that are probably higher priority than I will get everything. I won't get everything in there, so we'll help that. So Ron was that thing. On that list, there's two items. You got cash. Those are lights. But I gave you a list. So we want to bring on some other things, all that stuff. I mean, I can get little
If you guys are gonna eat, you wanna get in there soon. You're gonna get something to eat or no? Oh, yeah, we've got food back in the community room for anyone who wants to get some. Christine brought that in, so actually, we can that again. Yeah.
because we'll start back at 6.
You always gotta update that stuff. You're always going to, so you have to have a large lineup. How you So I just didn't know that. I'm trying
So you can always, I've left my phone here before, and and so I've got a phone, you can be in the front door, like, they lock those other doors. Hey, then come around. You get in there, you paper station.
And I said, if we stay with that theme, yes, I can give you something right now that we can have. But if we stay with that theme, that might work your bad, because I told them, we'll put your plaque on the walls and stand tall forever for that. And that way you're gonna get market, you're gonna get the market, we're gonna get help with some of the stuff. And we're still small, you know? Like, I'm not trying to, which I did forget to mention, I'm glad you're here, so something changes, I told you. I did forget to mention, we do not have prices on the new vehicle. Because right now, I think I could increase these line items, lower these line items, break even. I don't think I'm gonna have to, other than salaries and stuff, I don't know if I'm gonna have to ask for it. I think I can break even, school money around. Other than salaries, obviously, control on that stuff, benefits, and typically goes up raises, which can break. But I did forget that we have not gotten costs on cars yet, we were looking to increase. But that was part of it too, because yeah, I can pay for them and stuff, and then ask them something else. I can do that easily, but I thought it would be cool to stay in that theme of evidence forensic lab, so I can give them kudos. And that's what Lucas and Dalton did for us.
Well, that's what I told him. I said, what it sounds like to me, you're talking about Cameron, this and that, and I said, Ron just got back from forensic school, and I said, I'm sure there's equipment he needs to.
Yeah, he was, definitely have a car.
Yeah. So, all right.
So that's kind of my idea. I thought it was going to serve them, their interest too, because they can come and, you know, you can put that in the newspaper, put a plaque on the wall that says stand tall.
And like I said, he does, that is one thing they don't do is.
Throwing your picture.
No, there's only the skeletal remains, so, but,
Because all we're asking for is storm damage, so we can't ask for nothing.
Yes, I'll take it.
It is, that's why I want to make sure. Now we're getting somewhere. Yeah, just to see if the base will come up. Sure.
Hey, there's Greg.
How is it?
I'm in Mark's seat, because that's not my
I
pen.
recommended, I told you.
What you need?
I am looking for the remote that is not here. Where did it?
Would it be with the computer stuff over here?
Yeah, that's what I'm telling everybody. I recommend.
There should be another remote in here, and I don't see it. See, the airport was in here the other week. And
What's
this
that?
is-
There's a weird little, I don't know what that was.
This is old, this is ancient.
Ancient. Make sure you don't have a remote in your thing. Just to make sure. We're missing the remote.
Anybody have a small black remote?
From a distance, it looks like.
Hey, Roy. How are you, sir?
I just want to make sure it's up there, and I can't find, the other remote that goes to that projector is missing. The airport was in here 2 weeks ago. And,
Our remote did fly.
well, maybe it did fly, it flew somewhere, because it ain't here. Unless it's in that back closet, which I don't think it is, and this one's not gonna work. Watch your heads.
That should have been pushed back.
They're coming down on our heads.
So you had to stand up and smack myself right in the face.
Ready to go, Christine?
Yeah, I think so. Give me just a sec.
Sure.
Turn green.
Okay, the recording's back on, but the video's acting up.
Okay.
Put the recording's back on.
All right, we'll just go ahead and get started then. All righty. We'll call this meeting back to order. We're going to begin the evening with the moment of silence. If we could, keep in mind the folk dealing with the wildfires in California. If you'll join me in that moment of silence. Thank you. If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, before we get into public comment this evening, we have Mr. Greg Walker in the building, and we just want to take a minute to honor Greg on his retirement. We'll write a couple of words. Today, we honor a man whose leadership and commitment have profoundly shaped our community. Greg Walker, as Fletcher's Parks and Rec Director, Greg has gone above and beyond to enhance our town's quality of life. Under his guidance, Fletcher has seen remarkable improvements to its parks, programs, and recreational facilities, fostering a stronger and more connected community. Greg's passion for serving others and dedication to public service exemplify the highest standards of civic responsibility. His vision and hard work have left an incredible mark on Fletcher and West North Carolina. In recognition of his outstanding service and unwavering dedication to the people of North Carolina, it is my privilege to present Greg Walker with the Order of the Lone Leaf Pine from Governor Roy Cooper, one of the highest honors awarded by the state of North Carolina. Congratulations, Greg, and thank you for all your contributions, everything you've done for us.
I'm just humbled and honored to be receiving this award tonight. It's just a reflection of this community and all of the great staff, great volunteers, the wonderful, generous sponsors I've worked with over the years. I just want to thank town council, our town manager, and the mayor for all their support in the past 16 years. And most of all, I want to thank God for letting me use the love of sports and recreation I have to turn it into a career to help enhance the lives of others. On all recreation items. Congratulations. Thanksgiving.
Yeah, congratulations, Greg.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Hope you're having fun now.
And one last congratulations, Greg, and enjoy retirement.
It's everything they say it was.
I believe it.
Nice.
Thank y'all. Have a good evening.
The audience is gone.
See y'all. Have a good evening. See you, Roy.
See you, Roy.
All righty, back to normal. All right, going into public comment, I don't believe we have anybody signed up, but is there anybody who wishes to speak during public comment? All righty, hearing none, moving on to approvals of the minutes. Any corrections, additions, or deletions to the minutes presented? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Make the motion.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a motion and a second to approve the minutes? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries and the minutes are approved. Moving on to updates from council, if there are any. Any updates? All righty, hearing none. Moving on to the consent agenda. Any question, comment, or concern relates to either of those items? All right, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Make a motion?
Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion carries, the consent agenda is approved. Moving into our first discussion item, the public hearing to consider amendments to the Land Development Code. We have Mr. Roofer here. Thank you, Eric.
Hello again, everybody. Glad the crowd cleared out. I was worried it was torches and pitchforks.
That's not.
Actually, this item tonight is a few, what I call the minor housekeeping ordinance amendments. Just random assortment of things, a short list of things that we found, just that we kind of took in a package deal in front of the planning board a couple months ago. They unanimously recommended approval of these. I'm going to touch on them very briefly. Article 4 had a provision about pools with some contradictory language about setbacks, primarily as it related to the patio areas and whatnot associated with pools, where it had incorrectly said that there were no setback requirements from rear and side lot lines, which directly contrasted or conflicted with a section right before it that said that included those in the items that are counted in with a setback, which basically pools and all their related equipment, accessories have a 10-foot side and rear setback. So we moved to strike the incorrect conflicting language. Moving on, Article 5, which is the section of the code that deals with building types and architectural standards. A few years ago, we did some changes to our land use plan, and subsequently some other amendments to our ordinance that severely restricted residential development in our commercial districts. As is the case just with the code being several inches thick, we left in incorrectly a reference to the zoning district C1 under the building type of house. So we're just simply striking the reference to C1. And there was a reference to something called MHD, which all we could speculate, we don't know what MHD was, and years ago when this code was crafted, it was a cut and paste, a lot of it from probably some other places the consultant was working. So we do not have an MHD. I've been striking that reference, which is on page 5-11 of that Article 5. And then moving on to the Heart of Fletcher overlay, which is Appendix 2 of the Land Development Code. In a couple of the sections, Town Center Business and Town Center Gateway, there were some leftover references to residential uses that would not be allowed in the corresponding zoning districts currently, so we moved to strike anything really referencing the residential use. And all of those should be in your packet. Hopefully they came to you in color so you can see the red highlighted text. Okay, great. And that is it. So if council chooses to approve these, I would get an ordinance document in front of Mayor Blakely for signature, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions before we have the public hearing? It all seems pretty straightforward. All righty, do we have a motion to end the public hearing?
Motion.
We have a motion to enter the public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to enter the public hearing. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of entering a public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We are in public hearing. I don't believe we have anybody signed up. Is there anybody who wishes to speak during the public hearing? I'm hearing none. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we are outside the public hearing. And so now we just need a motion to approve the amendments as presented in the Land Development Code. Somebody would like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the amendments. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the amendments in the Land Development Code as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries and the amendment's carried. Thank you, Eric.
Glad to have an easy batch for once.
That was really easy. Have a good evening, Eric.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
All righty. Item number 7, discussion item, is the presentation from Sergeant Diaz on his recent attendance at the National Forensic Academy. We have Chief Terry here that's going to introduce Sergeant Diaz first. Thank y'all both for being here.
If you recall, during last year's budget process, I requested a significant amount of money so we could send somebody to the National Forensic Academy. The tuition for that class is $12,000. It's a 10-week course. It's a very prestigious school through the University of Tennessee. And, when I started here in 2021, being a small agency, small department, that sending somebody to a class like that just never crossed my mind. I wouldn't think that would be something we would probably do just because we were small. We often rely on larger agencies to help us with crime scenes. And so entering the doors here back in 2021, I never thought that I would be making that request. But then, I see the caliber of people we have, and I see the commitment we have here at Fletcher and how we do our business and the professionalism that the officers have here. And sometimes we rely on other agencies, and we'll continue, as I said when I proposed this last year, we'll continue to rely on those agencies. We have great relationships with the agencies around us, and sometimes we need the extra help being small. We don't have the resources, the manpower, the equipment, and we'll continue to utilize them when we need to. But when you call on other agencies, sometimes you lose that independence, and not all agencies necessarily do the job the way we want the job done here in Fletcher. So again, seeing the caliber of people we have and the commitment here, all of a sudden it became enticing to send somebody to that National Forensic Academy, and it has given us tremendous greater depth to be able to process crime scenes professionally and to help us solve crimes. So thanks to your generosity, you guys approved the funds last year. We were able to send Sergeant Ron Diaz. He is the sergeant of our detective division, our CID, and we were able to send him to that class, and he attended that 10-week course and recently graduated. And it was actually his idea to come back to you and present a little bit and tell you a little bit about the course and what he learned there. And again, I appreciate him, and I appreciate his efforts all the time. But again, it was his idea to come forward. It wasn't my idea. And I'm grateful that he chose to do that. I think it's a wonderful idea. So Sergeant Ron Diaz is going to come up here and tell you a little bit about his 10 days. I tried to get a story pictures in, but he didn't want to.
What? Mr. Player Mike.
Thank you for being here. Congratulations.
Thank you for having me. So for those members of council who might not know who I am, my name is Ron Diaz, and I'm a detective sergeant here at Fletcher PD. I've been with Fletcher for about 10 years, and I've been in the what we call CID, the Criminal Investigations Division, for that entire time. So I've seen a lot of things, in little Fletcher here happen from time to time. And the National Forensic Academy is known in law enforcement as one of these prestigious schools for crime scene investigation. So for me to you, I wanted to extend my appreciation and thanks for allowing me the opportunity. It truly is a once-in-a-lifetime type opportunity to attend this level of training, and it did not disappoint. So the plan for tonight is for me just to show you a couple of the highlights. I promise you it won't be 45 minutes, as my chief mentioned earlier, so I hate to disappoint you. But it'll be about 10 minutes or so just to show you a little bit about what I learned, what I went through, some of the experiences, and then allow some time for council to ask any questions of me that maybe you're just curious about, and just to kind of let you know where our capabilities are moving forward as a police department. So again, thank you for this time. All right. Hopefully you can see that on your screen.
We can. Thank you.
All right, so each year the National Forensic Academy holds what they call sessions. The session I was a part of was 65. It started back in 2001, right around the same time as 9/11 happening. Session 1 had to experience that whole thing back then. So they have 3 sessions a year, spring, summer, fall. I was part of the fall session this past fall. So just to be clear, the National Forensic Academy it's an intensive 10-week program designed to meet the needs of law enforcement agencies in evidence identification, collection, and preservation. So primarily for crime scene investigation. It's about 400 hours total in training, and it's broken up into 10 weeks. I had the opportunity to go to Tennessee, to Knoxville, it's where it was. And part of the tuition that was paid allowed me to stay in an apartment with a roommate. So I've never met this man before a day in my life until I came to Knoxville. But everyone a part of this session is from law enforcement from all across the nation. So we had people from the Texas Rangers there, Army Criminal Investigations Division, Massachusetts State Police, we had Anchorage, Alaska Police there. I mean, all over the United States, officers come for this specific training. And that's one of the greatest things about it, which I'll touch on later. But it's about 10 weeks, and each week is broken up into a different forensic discipline. So when I say forensic discipline, I mean things like fingerprint identification, how to process fingerprints, bloodstain pattern analysis, how to look at a certain bloodstain and determine or try to classify how that bloodstain was created in various ways. It also has a forensic anthropology week where basically you have to go out into the field and identify a burial site and then recover the skeletal remains from that site too, so we'll touch on that as well. So each week, just a different discipline. And one of the best things about that was meeting some of the instructors. The instructors that taught these classes, they're experts in the field. They're the ones you see on TV, court TV, testifying at these trials. We had two gentlemen who taught our shooting reconstruction week, and both of them are familiar with who Chris Kyle was. He was a Navy SEAL sniper that was murdered in Texas. Those two gentlemen were the ones who actually worked that crime scene. So they came in and told us all about it. We had some Texas Rangers came in who worked the crime scene at Uvalde at the school shooting that happened, as well as the Sutherland Springs church shooting that happened a few years back. I remember that as well. So the people coming to teach are top-notch, and they share their experiences with you. So that was a really cool part of that class as well. So moving forward, some of the things that we were trained in were crime scene management. We did a lot of photography, learned how to use the camera really well. Latent print processing, there's various methods on how to develop latent prints. And just to be clear, latent just means not visible to the eye, right? So anything left on this table, for example, we could process that and see what would appear. That's all latent means, latent print processing. Of course, bloodstain pattern analysis, courtroom preparation, digital evidence, odontology, which is basically bite mark identification and having to do with human teeth and how to identify human teeth and even age people according to that as well. Shooting reconstruction, forensic anthropology, this is the burial recovery that I mentioned a second ago. Overall death investigation, entomology, which is, I'll be frank, it's a very gross part. That has to do with insects and how insects, the different stages of life for insects during human decomposition after somebody dies. So we had to get very hands-on with that. But I didn't, I'll spare you any of those pictures. I didn't bring any. Behavioral analysis, arson, post-blast investigation. We actually had an FBI agent come out and blow some things up for us on the field. It's very, very fun to watch, very cool, a lot of fun. And then interviewer interrogation, how to interview suspects and things like that. So I'll just go through a couple things. Some of these are just examples of things that I processed while I was there. At the end of each week, you had to give a presentation too, to kind of show what you learned. So this was part of my fingerprint identification week. This bottle, if you see, I'm not sure if you can see it very clearly, but it's made of glass. That's non-porous surface, so it doesn't, obviously there's no pores in it. And it's also a textured surface, so a very difficult surface to try to lift a print from. So in law enforcement, we see things like this, and we're like, oh my goodness, that's a very difficult piece of evidence to try to get anything from. But while I was there, they told us how to, taught us techniques how to do that, and I was able to lift this print right there from that bottle, which, according to the instructors, the quality is good enough to where you can try to make an identification from it. Through a fingerprint system. So moving forward, they also showed us how to process very difficult things, which I didn't even think you could do, such as duct tape and electrical tape, the sticky side. So they gave us a tangled up piece of electrical tape there. They taught us a processing technique, and we were able to develop a print like that on the sticky side of the tape. So things like that, these are just a couple examples here. Moving forward, footwear impressions. Basically, if somebody were at a crime scene, breaking and entering, and let's say it rained the night before, and they're out there breaking into the home through a window, they leave a shoe impression there. We've actually had cases like that here before, which we've been able to solve based on evidence like that. But they taught us how to cast those impressions. So basically, we just pour this, this substance on top of the impression, let it harden, and then take it away, and that is the finished product right there. So, and some of these techniques, the cost to do them, very minimal. We have some of this equipment already in our police department that we can do. If this were to happen tomorrow, we could use that. Next, bloodstain pattern analysis. Now, this is a very complex field, so they gave us just the basics. The interesting thing about the National Forensic Academy is they have a lot of land, a lot of property. So we went out to one of their sites out in the woods, and they have these homes that are just constructed for the sole purpose of crime scene mock-ups. So basically what they did here is they put cardboard inside these little homes, and they took real human blood and splattered it in different patterns in those rooms. We had to come in with protective gear and all that, and basically work that crime scene and identify what patterns we saw on the wall. So this type of training wasn't really sit down and hear a lecture. It was a lot of hands-on in the field, great training like that. So actually doing the work that you see here. So, but yeah, so patterns like projected, swipe, and transfer there. Just a few examples. Then we get into crime scene mapping. Basically, most crime scenes, the proper procedure to work a crime scene would involve some type of diagram or sketch. Officers are taught that from basic law enforcement training, and then for whatever reason, you don't see a lot of it in real law enforcement unless it's a major case such as a homicide or a death investigation, things like that. So they taught us how to take a rough sketch and then turn it into a digitized diagram, as you see there. Now, these are very simple looking, but let me assure you, this took me a long time to put these two pictures together with the measurements and everything involved in them. So, but that's them side to side, and they taught us how to, how to do those properly and what it takes as far as computer programming. So, next, shooting reconstruction. So we went out into the woods again. You see that car there? I believe that was an Oldsmobile, and it's been shot at quite a bit, as you can see. And we had some officers from Knoxville Police Department come out and shoot at different angles, at different distances, and we were told that we had to process that vehicle based on what we had learned as far as shooting reconstruction. So this is the diagram we came up with, and there's some of the pictures that I took and things that I did there working that. All right, so everything kind of culminates into the last week, which they call Forensic Anthropology Week. I'm not sure if anybody here is familiar with the term body farm. Have you ever heard that term as it relates? Okay. So this is the body farm. The University of Tennessee was the first institution to actually develop that. Basically, a guy by the name of Dr. William Bass, a long time ago, thought it would be great as far as, to teach at a college level the different phases of human decomposition. I'm sorry? Is there a question?
No, I was just saying, I'm sorry, Western Carolina has one.
Yes, yeah. So a lot of other institutions now have kind of done the same thing. As far as I know, University of Tennessee was the first university to implement that type of training. So basically, the body farm, you go out there, it's exactly what it sounds like. There's different human cadavers in different areas of the forest in different stages of decomposition. So we had to go out there, and all the training we had learned up to that point, we had to form into groups and basically identify where a grave was, a clandestine grave, then rake the leaves out, and then go layer by layer through the grave until we hit the skeletal remains, and then process that. So it took about 2 days, start to finish, to get all this done. They taught us how to do that properly. Each group was paired with an actual forensic anthropologist from, it was a university in Florida, but very helpful. But I'll kind of walk you through a little bit here. So this is our site. You really can't see a whole lot. We put some flags out to kind of identify the perimeter where we thought the grave was. And then we cleared off the leaves, and then we set up our measuring tape and different measurement instruments to help figure out, how to map it, basically. So if you kind of see, I'm not sure if the picture is that great on your side, but there's what they call subsidence. Basically, if you look at level ground and you see a little bit of a dip in like that, that's called subsidence. That would be an indicator, not the only indicator, but an indicator of a concealed grave site. Because over time after, a body was placed inside the grave, dirt was put on top, over time, that would start to sink in like this just due to weather and climate and things like that. So that's what you're looking for in that case. So after that, we uncovered the grave. It took a long time to do. It's a very meticulous process. We got down to the skeletal remains, and then we had to map every single part of the remains to include all the fingers, all the toes, every single bone. I think we found every single one except for 6 or 7 of some toes. So, this is my group right here that was with me the whole time. That was the finished product there. So we passed that section, that particular part of the training. Any questions on the forensic anthropology? No? Okay. I don't want to sound morbid, but I was very excited to do this. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. All right, so ultimately, what does this training mean for our police department, for our town, for our community, right? So a couple things. One, since I went through this training, they certified me as a crime scene investigator. So that is a good credential to have if we ever need to go to court for a trial or any major incident. It's just good to see that with somebody with our agency in case that ever were to happen. I hope it doesn't, but we do live in a world where things like that tend to happen sometimes. Also, it professionalizes what we do as a criminal investigations division. So I can share what I learned with the people that I work with. And we can even set up our own in-house trainings and just get everybody more professionalized in how we process crime scenes. So there's a certain process, you just can't run in there and do what you want. There's a certain way that you need to go about doing that. And since I went to this training, they've equipped me with some of that knowledge. So. And again, yeah, sharing the knowledge through internal training, not just for our criminal investigations division, but it's other things that I can even share with our patrol officers on the street who are going to be the first people to respond to a major incident or a crime like that. And then one of the biggest things was establishing relationships with other law enforcement agencies across the U.S. So crime doesn't stay put, right? So we don't live on an island either. So some of the best cases we've solved here since I've been here is through communication and relationships and coordination with other law enforcement agencies like the Henderson County Sheriff's Office, Hendersonville Police Department, and even outside agencies in other states. So the great thing about going to this class was I had the opportunity to network with other people from other agencies. So if I were to, let's say, try to contact a law enforcement agency in Anchorage, Alaska, now I know a person there that I can call. And sometimes, you get a little bit more effort on their end if they actually know who they're talking to instead of just cold calling. So that's a huge, huge benefit for us. Also, we're prepared and ready when major incidents occur. Like I mentioned before, I hope they don't, but we have to be prepared for if they do happen. And if they do happen, I want you all to rest assured that your police department is competent and we know what to do if we have a major case to process. And lastly, maintaining our community's trust and confidence through professional service. So any citizen that calls us deserves professional service. And we can give that to them as far as crime scene processing and in other ways as well. But they want, when they call 911, they want a competent professional to show up. And I think through this training and me sharing that with other people in our agency, we can take that step in the right direction to accomplish that. All right, that's pretty much it. That's our class and my class photo right there. For any University of Tennessee fans, that was in the stadium there. So I don't hear much cheering, so. But feel free to ask any questions. I'm happy to answer them. If you feel like a little pressed for time tonight, that's fine. I can, follow up with me later. I'm happy to sit down and go into more detail about some of the things that I experienced there. So.
Sounds good. What questions do we have?
Is there any continuing ed that you have to maintain with this certification?
So they have a symposium that comes around every now and then, and it's kind of like a refresher.
Yeah.
But there's nothing required to maintain the certification other than you go through it. It's kind of a one and done. But I think if the opportunity were to arise to go back for a 1 or 2 day refresher, if probably be a good thing to do.
Thank you.
Do they show, or do you exhume bodies? And that one was skeletal remains. Were there different levels of decomposition? You do have to do that too?
Yeah, so the entomology part, it was not skeletal remains. We actually
Yeah.
had to process the insects from that person. So,
All right, any other questions, comments?
I have a comment. I'm just excited that you're so excited about going. It's absolutely amazing that people like you exist to go out there and feed on this and thrive from it, because that's what we need. And that's not for everybody, for sure. So I'm just excited that we've got you
Hey,
to do that for us.
very excited to go, very excited to be.
Congratulations, and I appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Well, and relate to your family, thank you for letting you go,
Yes,
because that's a long commitment to go to be away from family
absolutely.
to get that training, so.
I will
Right in the
definitely.
middle of the storm, too.
Yeah, that was another challenge, additional challenge there. And the class was great. They told me anything I needed. They were very helpful in that way too. But yes, my wife, I will definitely extend appreciation to her
Yes,
too.
please
So
do.
she's a champ. Great.
I did a 13-week one, and I know the challenge.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, Sergeant, well done. Also, you have a much stronger stomach than I do. We appreciate you going to that course. We already have a very knowledgeable and professional department, but I think with you doing this, it takes us to the next level. Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Chief, a question. Do you think there'd be a need a couple of years down the road to maybe send a second person? Well. Not to put you on the spot, and I know it's an expense.
You'd love to have lawyer detectives. I mean, you gotta prioritize, and there's always gonna be needs, there's always things we want. You gotta try to figure out where you can get the most bang for your buck, get all the money in the world. I absolutely would send our lawyer detectives.
Okay.
You gotta prioritize and fight each battle.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
we need to have at least a couple people in CID in investigations that had that certification, you know?
Yeah, you don't know when, the big one happens, someone's gonna be on vacation.
Yeah.
Someone's gonna be sick, it happens all the time, you know, your main guy's on vacation.
And they can support, because they have that knowledge base going through the.
Well, sounds like you're getting ready to prove $12,000.
Jump too far ahead.
There we go. We got it. Got anything else?
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Have a good evening, y'all. All right, moving on to item number 8, the review of our updated council committee list. We made a few changes last week, just to go ahead and review those. We put Keith for the NPO alternate. Amber's going to be water and sewer serving member. I'm going to take on the MSD. Jim's going to be the alternate for Fletcher Fire and Rescue. And Trevor's going to do the Henderson County Partnership ex officio. Is everybody still okay with that? Still work for everybody?
Yes.
All righty. Do y'all need a motion to approve that?
No.
Okay.
And I'll let the appropriate people know who is replacing, the vacant spots so that they can contact you. I'll give them an email and everything else so they can touch base with you.
Okay. Sounds good. Do we have anything else on that item? All righty. Thank you for everybody to be willing to serve in those roles. Moving on to item number 9, the update on the efforts to establish a farmer's market in Fletcher. Mr. Manager.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. Not much more to offer or add from last week on this. Just recap real quick, we've been pursuing and researching the possibility of having a farmer's market for the first time in Fletcher. Been working with some folks, or one person from the Extension Office, Henderson County Extension, Cooperative Extension Office, and a nonprofit group called ASAP. We have a public listening or a listening session set up for the 27th of this month. That's a Monday at 6 o'clock. And we did a survey prior to that time last month and had a good response on it. And so kind of the next steps, get more feedback from people who are operators, vendors of farmers markets and operators, probably weigh in too, and then try and pick a day of the week and time and location. And kind of narrow that down after the listening session. I'll report on that. So we'll be holding that in council chambers on the 27th. And let's see, and then from there, once we can determine location, time, day, a starting point would probably be in May of this year, if we can hold to that, because they generally run May to October.
Sounds good. Do we have any questions or comments from Mark on that? Sounds good. Thank you again for working on that.
Yes.
Then moving on to item number 10, the update on storm-related repairs at the park.
Yeah, so last week I mentioned that we had hired McGill Associates, so they're our engineer of record, went through an RFQ process. They were the only ones who submitted a proposal, but they addressed everything in the proposal, and it was a good proposal to demonstrate their qualifications to handle this and for what we need. So next steps are developing bid specifications for each of the projects. And I think I mentioned the ball field, the fencing is kind of the highest priority project, and it would be all the ball field fencing, the baseball fields, and then the dog park. And we're going to do the multi-use courts separate, because there's a little more things going on other than just fence repair there. We've got some blocks or the sidewalks that are cracked around it. We might have to do some repair on some little places on the actual surface of the court, so that'll be a separate one. But and then the bridge and some grading in the area that when you come into the park between the drive and the creek, we have a lot of sediment in there, so that's a project. And then some of the stream bank repair that I've told you about. McGill has the bid spec together for all the fencing repairs, and that's been sent out. Bids will be due on February I just found that out today, I think the 4th. So we'll do a bid opening at 2 that day, and then we're also doing our bid opening for the street paving, street resurfacing projects, Powellville projects, that same day. But I'm glad to report that they got the bid spec together. McGill worked fast, hard on that, and staff helped a little bit. And it's out there for bid. And so hopefully we'll get good bids now coming in February. And I hope to be reporting a good, responsible low bidder, and then we can set them loose to get that done. And then, so in-house, we were doing the bidding for the redoing the fields as far as the surface, the turfus and dirt and laser grading and all that. And they should be starting, I think it's the 1st of February, they'll get the work done on that. So that should be done ahead of doing the fencing. Could be simultaneous, but I think that was it. I had to report on that. Let's see if I had any other follow-up things from last week. I think that was it on all the bid packets. And then I had some comments, I guess under manager comments, just related to storm response stuff.
All right. Anything from Mark on any of those items? All right, you want to move into your town manager's report?
Sure. So I know last week I talked about just update on the individual assistance from FEMA. So this is assistance that goes to families or an individual with damage to their home, property. And they extended the deadline. I was glad they did that to February the 6th. So we're trying to get the word out that if you haven't applied and you debated about it, or do it, get your name in there, apply. If you still think you're eligible, appeal it, but, pursue any assistance you can get. So that's been extended to February the 6th. And unless there's any questions on that kind of segueing into that, we're doing an after-action review, which is kind of after the event, what went well, what didn't, what can we improve on, and the county's facilitating that. There's going to be a bunch of sessions. They have one set up for mayors and managers. That's on January the 23rd. So Mayor and I will be attending that at 10:30 on the 23rd. And again, whatever feedback you all have, and if you don't have anything tonight, if you want to email it, just as far as suggestions for improvement or, things we could have done better in the future for hopefully nothing to this magnitude ever again, which I doubt we will be facing, but anyways, that's coming up, so please let me know if you have any other feedback or thoughts on that. And I guess related to that, I know y'all had some questions last week. I know, let's see, Wildwood Gardens. Oh, there was a question about Wildwood Gardens applying for and they have, so we've been able to verify that. And so I'm not sure who they're all requesting for assistance on it, but I know we encourage them to get a engineer involved and contractors so that they know pretty precisely what they need to do for repairs, costs, permitting, all those things. And they're looking, I know, at pre-built bridges out there. I heard that from Public Works.
I thought too, so it's looking at about 110,000.
Okay. Okay. And, if you can get 4 or 5 houses impacted by it at 40,000 a pop, then you're getting close to being able to do that, or enough to do it. Let's see. I know Jim had brought up last week about hazardous material pickups, and the county's doing this. I know on some streets it's been a bunch picked up. Other places, like, I don't know how many weeks y'all had yours out there at your address, and it was,
I know my neighbors put in 3 requests using that.
Yeah, that online
scan
form,
page,
yeah.
And I've done 2.
Okay.
So.
And I let the county engineer know, who's kind of overseeing the debris removal process with the contractor and communicating with the local governments, and maybe it's time soon here to do another joint meeting with the managers and county officials to talk about debris removal, how it's coming along, and the game plan and so forth. And I noticed on LGCCA, they're going to talk about post-storm liens. I imagine debris removal is going to come up in that. So that's coming up next week. Let's see. So that was kind of it related to that. And then tree removal on Wood Hill. I mentioned it's gone, it's done already. So the Leland cypresses there, yeah, when you're coming into South Chase on Wood Hill on the left, Public Works got to it last week, Tuesday, I think. So it was day after agenda review, they were at it, so.
It was just amazing how quick that dried up with the ice and snow we had with those trees not shading that section of the road.
Yes, yeah, and that was a good point. That was a problem. I know Javo had mentioned that in the past, and yep.
Well, well done to them. Thank you.
Yeah, I will think, and I just, appreciate, we have a tremendous Public Works department here who are very capable and very efficient, and know how to get things done, so I didn't think that Jabbo, his crew, is gonna be able to schedule that quickly and get on it, with everything else they've been doing. So, we have our next thing, our elected officials luncheon, so just a reminder, we got that coming up on tomorrow. Yeah, at noon, and then after that, they're having some after part of that to, I think it was storm related, there was some other discussion at 1:30, or maybe just more on the vision of what's happening or changing there with the partnership. And then last thing I was going to mention, got a meeting with Kai Water from Senator Budd's office, so that's coming up on this Thursday at 2. So I know Mayor's coming, and I'm trying to remember if anyone else from council was able to come. I know you had a conflict, I think you had a conflict, and you had the same. And I don't
Amber, you got a
know,
conflict?
Amber, if you can come, it's at 2 on this Thursday. It's at Town Hall here. Okay, good.
Is it just Kai, is it Robin
Just-
Ramsey? Okay.
I think it's just Kai. He didn't mention Robin coming, but if she can, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah, it's just, it's more efficient in doing these meetings if we can have 2 senators' office represented there. So that's coming up on Thursday, Thursday. And then I know last thing, Trevor brought up about some lighting on Rutledge Road near the new subdivisions, Heritage Park and the Authors. And I think kind of getting back towards the entrance to South Chase Tulip Tree. Jabba went and looked at that. I talked to him about it in the evening, and he can see like how it is dark near, not so much in Windsor Forest, but we can go back and look at it. But and he wasn't looking for lights out, but we can look if there's any lights out. But it's probably maybe more a thing that we need to request additional street lighting.
I think there's a light out. I think that they replaced all the poles after the storm. And I thought there used to be a light there, and they didn't put it back.
I noticed a couple of lights were there the other day, but it was during the daytime, so they weren't on, but I was wondering if they just maybe never got hooked back up, or are those still on? Because it's those new funky LED looking things.
They got the lights on around the corner, it looks like, at going into the Authors, but the other one you went in going into the Windsor Forest intersection, it's just really dark right there. I always thought it used to have a light right there, but I couldn't.
Okay. When you say the Windsor Forest, it's
sign
called Tulip Tree?
Tulip
that side
goes up the
entrance?
hill, yeah.
Okay, all right. We can go look at that and see, does it need more poles?
There's
More
a
lights,
pole.
or
There's a
they
pole
not
there.
out? Yeah.
That's why they replaced it.
Yeah, because they do go out, and there's a little tag on there, and the public will call sometimes, and we'll say, if you can call the tag in, they'll put it on, or if we get the tag from them, we'll put it in, and.
I don't remember seeing a light there no more.
Okay.
So once they placed the poles, I don't remember seeing
Yeah.
anything.
Okay, we'll try and get this, just general assessment of the
Okay.
area.
Well, thank you.
Follow up, yep. And that was all I had.
All right, any questions, comments from more? All right, do we have any other business from council? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make the motion.
Is there a motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second to adjourn, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, we are adjourned.